Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Friday, February 22nd, 2013. Alright, I'm going to start off with this first article that we kind of covered already just in the past few days, but Lebanon seems to be in the news as far as Syria goes, and the terrorists taking that to Lebanon now. So it says it seems to be moving closer to becoming a major new front in Syria's 2-year-old civil war. And so this is what I found then. UK to train Lebanese troops amid fears of Syria overspill. Britain says they're going to help train 2,000 Lebanese soldiers this year because of concern that Syria's neighbor will be sucked into the country's civil war. This is probably part of the plan. If they don't get regime change by a certain time, they just start doing certain things. They start spilling over the border and bringing Israel into it with Golan Heights. Or they do stuff like this, spill it over into Turkey, spill it over into Lebanon now. The announcement by William Hague during a 2-day visit to Lebanon came amid a tense face-off between the Free Syrian Army and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, which rebels accused of assisting the Syrian regime troops. Then you have Syrian rebels attack Lebanon, vow to eliminate Hezbollah. So the Free Syrian Army claims direct hits on Hezbollah sites in Lebanon. Goes on, it says the Free Syrian Army and other factions of the Sunni-dominated Syrian rebels have been fighting with Hezbollah, a Lebanese Shiite militia, for over a week, over control of several Shiite border villages with large populations of Lebanese residents. The Free Syrian Army has ordered the villages to be evacuated. So they promise to continue with its attacks until it eliminates Hezbollah across Lebanon. It says given that Hezbollah's militia's political wing is part of the ruling Lebanese government, this is a de facto declaration of war on Lebanon itself. Also, the Free Syrian terrorists have claimed direct hits and artillery attacks against Lebanon today, but in near-term fighting is likely to focus on rounding up Lebanon's own Sunni population into rebellion, something the Free Syrian Army has done to some success in the northern city of Tripoli. It says here they fueled weeks of sectarian violence late last year. Then we have Syrian rebels too weak to target Hezbollah sites. A new turn. It says here Syrian rebels warned about this attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon, basically. It says, however, Beirut-based analysts believes that these threats are not likely to be fulfilled and are rather linked to the events in neighboring Lebanon. And also you had the big suicide bomber that killed, 54 people, including school children, and injured over 200 in Damascus. The events in Damascus reflect clearly how desperate the terror groups are as they saw the peaceful solution to the crisis, which is led mainly by Russia. But this is because these terrorists will not have any place in any future peaceful settlement. So these desperate attacks are basically them hoping to stop any negotiations that might lead to a peaceful solution for the crisis. Also, they're aimed at punishing the Syrian people for their steadfastness and for the rejection of any form of fighting and terrorism. Israel fumes over European Union delaying and adding Hezbollah to the terror list. So they denounce Europe's hesitation in putting Lebanon's Hezbollah on the terror list, branding debate on the issue as almost a joke. Asking if Hezbollah is a terrorist organization is like asking if Paris belongs to France. The US has asked the EU to follow it and put Hezbollah on the terror list. Then next up we have UN must condemn terrorist attack in Syria. This is what Syria's foreign ministry is saying. They called on the UN to issue a clear condemnation of the deadly attack that left more than 50 people dead. It says here, but if the UNSC, UN Security Council, turns a blind eye to this terrorist act, just as it did previously, it will deepen doubts in its seriousness in combating terrorism and its commitment to implementing its resolutions in this regard. U.S. justifies terrorism by blocking Damascus bombing condemnation, says Russia. Russia has accused the U.S. of blocking a draft of the UN Security Council statement condemning the suicide bombings in the Syrian capital, which were among the deadliest in the 2 years of armed conflict. The U.S. blamed Russia in return, it says. It says here that they had this draft document submitted by Russia. It was aiming to express condolences to the victims, but the adoption was blocked by the U.S. and its allies, which wanted to add language condemning the Syrian president, a move that Russia could not accept. Spokeswoman for the U.S. mission to the UN responded by saying, "We strongly condemn all indiscriminate terrorist attacks against civilians or against diplomatic facilities," especially when they're funding the terrorists, the same terrorists that then go around and attack them in their embassies. Israeli drones shot down in Lebanon a Syrian missile. So IDF unmanned aircraft shot down along Syria-Lebanese border. And both countries reported Thursday morning, Lebanese military sources as it was Syrian anti-aircraft missile. So no response so far from the Syrian military. These are just little updates. So it seems to be like it's a true story there. I just covered that yesterday. Then this too, but then it's what? Cheney-Murdoch firm? Israel okays Cheney-Murdoch firm to drill in occupied Golan Heights. So it ends multi-decade ban on oil drilling in Golan Heights. So they issued a permit to the Genie Energy Company. It says this company's president is retired Israeli general, a former Likud housing minister, an MP who has repeatedly called for Israel to, quote, cleanse the occupied territories of all Arabs, and predicting in the New Yorker interview that eventually we will have to kill them all. Before his successful political career, he was investigated for war crimes. After men under his command testified, he ordered them to break the bones of Palestinian civilians. He was reprimanded after one of the beaten men died. So the company, Genie, includes former Vice President Dick Cheney, News Corporation head Rupert Murdoch, and several other high-profile figures. Then we have NATO set to continue funding huge Afghan army. They're poised to abandon deal to cut troops after 2014. So just a week after General Austin had expressed support for such a move, NATO is moving forward with a plan to keep the massive Afghan army, currently at 352,000, at its present size for the foreseeable future. The problem with such an enormous military is that the Afghan government has little to no money to pay for it. So, and the thing is, of course, is they want to send them money, but they can't trust them because it's totally corrupt. So thousands of U.S. and NATO troops to stay in Afghanistan post-2014. So there's a proposal unveiled on Friday by Defense Secretary Leon Panetta during a meeting of NATO member states in Brussels. They said that 8,000 to 12,000 troops would stay in Afghanistan. So there you go. They're coming home. No, they're not. They're coming home. No, they're not. String of attacks leaves 26 killed, 50 wounded across Iraq. We were just talking about, yesterday, about how Iraq was actually shutting down these little rat holes, pipelines, underground, basically smuggling tunnels that the Free Syrian Army and that use. And then also that they were helping to build a pipeline into Syria from Iran. So basically authorized it or something. And I said, there'd be explosions. So there you go. I don't know if that has any connection, but either way. West wants Shia Sunni sectarian rifts, says Iran MP. He says sowing discord among Muslims is one of the main tools used by the global arrogance, he calls it, to commit Muslim genocide. Unfortunately, some extremist groups which claim to be Islamists have become tools in their global arrogance hands. And there was just one protester that died recently in Bahrain. It says the global arrogance is even trying to define Bahrain's revolution as a conflict between Shia and Sunni and not as protest for achieving freedom. Remember this article about Pakistan, U.S. Saudi-funded terrorists sowing chaos in Pakistan. So it's talking about Baluchistan, long target of Western geopolitical interests. A terror wave coincides with this Gwadar port handover to China. That's right, China having basically taken over this port. Then all of a sudden they get this big explosion. And it says here, Pakistan Army denies links with killers of Shia Muslims, which would be the Sunnis. So it says here that the Army's denied any links to a terrorist group that have claimed responsibility for a series of bomb attacks that have killed over 180 Shia Muslims in the country. Also, they actually caught one of these guys as the head of the organization. So this is kind of funny because, the Pakistani ISI, that's kind of notorious, or at least semi-known for doing some dirty stuff, just like most intelligence agencies. So, and they are a Western puppet government, I hate to say it. There is no way the Army can afford this, links the militants, that is. If such a thing comes to notice, it will be sorted out. Yeah, I'm sure it will, right? Then we have U.S. threatens sanctions on Pakistan over gas pipeline. So here we go again. It says pipeline to Iran would be sanctionable. So it says here this Iran-Pakistan pipeline, an ambitious plan initially introduced in 1989. This is the one I've been talking about on and off, that they keep saying it's going to happen, never does, because the U.S. keeps interfering. It says, which would be potentially a big step in finally solving Pakistan's long-standing energy crisis. But it goes on here and it says that is about to get underway this month, but not if the U.S. gets its way. They've issued a statement today insisting that building a pipeline to Iran from which to import natural gas was in and of itself sanctionable offense, which the U.S. considers wholly unacceptable. So you're offending the United States by trying to become energy semi-independent. But they're stalling for years. Pakistan seems set to go ahead with it. North Korea, NATO war in Libya proves disarming is unwise. So addressing their recent nuclear weapons tests and international demands that they abandon the program unconditionally, North Korea has issued a new statement citing Libya as an example of why that's a really bad idea. Libya abandoned its nuclear program in 2003 as part of an effort to improve relations with Western nations. Though the U.S. and other officials gave lip service to the idea of improved ties, by 2011 NATO was attacking Libya, imposing regime change in the nation. North Korea's statement termed that tragic consequences of abandoning a nuclear program that is partially finished, insisting that keeping the program intact is the safer choice. Remember what I was saying, the West wanted them to carry out these nuclear tests so they can see how far they are as far as their weapons go. So spy agencies scrounged for details on North Korean nuclear test. They said they found no traces of nuclear-related particles. That's right, they lacked scientific evidence that they were looking for, so it's pretty interesting. But maybe they already know, right? Maybe the whole thing's lip service. So secret U.S. military flights carried officials' equipment to North Korea. Senior U.S. administration officials had secret talks in North Korea on at least 3 occasions in 2011 and 2012. Says the visits had potential implications for Japan. Washington did not inform its security partner at the time and only informally confirmed one of them when the Japanese side pressed government and other sources in Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. The U.S. State Department even warned the Foreign Ministry against making further inquiries, saying that they would harm bilateral relations. U.S. military planes flew from an airbase in Guam to Pyongyang and back on April 7, 2012, and again on a longer visit from August 18th to the 20th. Those aboard were Sidney Sealer, the director for Korea at the U.S. National Security Council, and this Joseph DeTrani, who headed the North Korea desk at the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence, who left in May. 15 Republican senators want Chuck Hagel removal, so here we go. They just did this. Senators calling the president in a letter sent on Thursday to remove Hagel's nomination because he lacked the bipartisan support and confidence to serve effectively. In the history of this position, they said in the letter, none has ever been confirmed with more than 11 opposing votes. It says, however, the White House replied that it continues to support Hagel. UNESCO grants Peace Prize to Francois Hollande amid French-led Mali war. The UN Cultural Agency, UNESCO, has granted a Peace Prize to the French president for his valuable contribution to peace and stability in Africa amid the ongoing French-led war in the African country of Mali for resources and everything, whatever. Crazy. It was actually a president from Africa, president of Mozambique, who chaired the jury of this Felix Houphouët-Boigny Peace Prize. Hillary Clinton charged $200,000 a speech, which is more than her whole year's salary as Secretary of State and the same fee that Bill Clinton charges. She stepped down from her job as Secretary of State earlier this month. She's considered the front-runner for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2016, but has not decided if she will run. And finishing up here, Brits do not trust the media, says a poll. More than 70% of Britons do not trust the media as they believe they put profit before reliability. So investigative journalist Tony Goslin said in an interview that they are to blame for the public distrust, saying that these super-rich millionaires are using their outlets to peddle their own political. But I don't know if you remember this from September 24th, 2012. Poll says Americans really don't trust the media. New numbers show the breach has reached record numbers. Americans have a record lack of trust and confidence in the media, according to a new poll from Gallup. The poll finds that 60% of those surveyed have not very much trust in the media, compared with 40% who said they had a great deal or fair amount. The numbers have been steadily on the decline over the last 20 years. And here's a story that will warm your heart. UN rejects damage claim for more than 5,000 Haiti cholera victims, citing diplomatic immunity. So kind of pulling a Pope, right? The United Nations rejected a claim for damages on behalf of more than 5,000 Haitian cholera victims and their families on Thursday, citing diplomatic immunity. The claim was filed in November 2011. Studies show that the disease was inadvertently brought to Haiti by a UN battalion from Nepal. where cholera is endemic. Alright, so I'm going to leave off there. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.